In the early 20th century, the United States faced two pressing issues: a national meat shortage and an ecological crisis. To address these issues at the same time, the U.S. Congress considered a bold and ingenious plan. It was called hippopotamus ranching. Proponents argued that hippos imported from Africa and raised in Louisiana's bayous would provide a delicious new source of protein for a meat-hungry nation. The animals would eat the invasive water hyacinth, which was killing fish and choking off waterways. It would be a fantastic win-win situation. A bill was introduced in Congress, and editorials and newspapers lauded the culinary virtues of lake cow bacon. Jan Moellem describes the hippo ranching scheme and the two fascinating men behind it, one a modest frontiersman and soldier of fortune, the other a conceited con man. They were both spies. Each had vowed to kill the other. The great cause of hippo ranching, however, brought them together. The year 1910 marked the beginning of hippopotamus ranching in America. There was a severe meat shortage. These were peak years for immigration. Cities were expanding, and the meat industry was growing in size and ugliness. But it couldn't keep up. America had always solved its problem by moving west, but the border had now been closed. So there was a meat crisis, but there was also an identity crisis. The idea was to use land that wasn't productive for grazing cattle, such as swamps and bayous. So you'd put the hippos in environments that aren't too dissimilar to where they live in Africa. You could absorb all of the energy in what appears to be a wasteland and turn it into meat. At the same time, there was a serious problem with invasive water hyacinth plants, which persist to this day. So a Louisiana congressman named Robert Broussard decided that bringing in hippos to suck up the plants would solve the water hyacinth problem. You were literally taking one problem and applying it to another. Well, Broussard had this congressional hearing, and he needed expert witnesses, so there were others involved in his plan too. The first was this geeky apple researcher. The other two were Frederick Russell Burnham and Fritz Duquesne. Frederick Russell Burnham was a historically significant but largely forgotten figure. The Boy Scouts were founded in his honor to develop boys who were capable and honorable like him. Indiana Jones was inspired by him. He was a freelance adventurer who'd gone to Africa to fight for the British colonialists because, like many others at the time, he thought it was a noble project to bring civilization to Africa. He has been called the most complete human being who ever lived. Fritz Duquesne was a Boer, descended from Dutch settlers in Africa. He was a very slick individual. In this fog of aliases, he moved through life. He was a skilled and ambitious con man. During the Second Boer War, he fought against the British. He, like Burnham, was a free-roaming spy. He was once described as the human epitome of sin and deception by Burnham. The two men were assigned to kill each other during the Boer War, but somehow the Hippo plan brought them together. Pretty weird, right? Anyway, they had a genuine rivalry, but it was one of those old-fashioned rivalries where you honored your opponent. It appears they never fought together. When they finally met, it's under the guise of being Broussard's collaborators on the Hippo plan. Based on their experiences in Africa, they planned to establish a lobbying firm to collect donations from wealthy individuals. Obviously, this did not happen, but it begs the question, what if it had? It's a fascinating thought experiment. I've never tried hippo, but many people say it's delicious. So that's a done deal, but I'm not sure how feasible it would have been or what unintended environmental consequences it might have had. The U.S. didn't get the hippos, but they were also not starving, so what happened to the meat crisis? What happened was the birth of industrial agriculture. Rather than bringing in new animals to take advantage of underused landscapes, they basically engineered those landscapes into more pasture and packed more and more of the same types of animals onto that new land. You could draw a straight line from this point in 1910, when the Hippo plan seemed feasible, to the later solutions, which were feedlots and confinement operations with all the attendant consequences and fallout. One intriguing aspect of the Hippo plan was that people imagined that because hippos were so large, they wouldn't be able to be shipped to the stockyards in Chicago like other animals. There were also plans to import antelope and construct ostrich farms. They were essentially open to anything. However, you'd end up with a patchwork of local food systems. It's very Michael Pollan-esque idea, with things grown and slaughtered locally and a more diverse and resilient system. The most compelling about this story, I think, is the idealism around this idea, that people were willing to raise these really bold solutions and attempt to think them through. I think there's actually something beautiful about the idea that congressmen would have a hearing on hippopotamus ranching. It was this moment when anything seemed possible. So, there you have it, folks. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Take care. We'll see you in the next video.